After the last rather emotional involvement with actresses trying to make a comeback, and revengeful husbands, I'm due for a rest. I phoned Inga in Paris from my London hotel, and she suggested a private holiday resort, which is so private, she said, that it doesn't exist. That sounded good to me, and I asked her for details. She gave them to me and said she might be seeing me there if her business in Paris was finished in time. She also said that the rest would probably do me good and give me a chance to try to tap my memory for a hint as to that evasive past of one Adam Grant. While I was getting ready to take the extremely complicated steps towards arranging a stay at this resort, known as Blindfold Bay, a man whose name apparently was Patcher was about to pay a visit to someone in Geneva, Switzerland.
Who is it, please?
I'm just in from Cordoba.
Ah, come in, Patcher.
Thank you.
Well, how was your journey? Help yourself to drinks.
Comfortable and dead on time.
Excellent. The envelope?
Is on the chess table. Tell me, Fenning, what made you think I'd take on the job? I had retired, you know.
Rubbish. You'll never retire. And as for your reasons, firstly, the money.
I have money.
Nobody has money these days. In fact, no one has money anymore. It's too expensive. Second reason, running down a killer, a man who couldn't be touched by the police. That's too tempting. You couldn't refuse. In fact, I'll lay a little bet right now that in one or another of those nameless cupboards at certain police headquarters, a dossier with Callahan stamped on the front also bears the legend, "Not to be opened."
Oh, there is. I've seen it.
Oh, you're good, Badger. Very good.
I have to be. I'm, very expendable.
Very.
Yeah, so that's that.
There's more.
Oh?
I'm sure you'll be interested.
No killing?
No killing, unless... Unless they kill you.
Oh, of course. Go on.
Do you want the fee details or the inducement details first?
Oh, we'll keep the best till last. Inducements first.
A week's uninterrupted vacation, all paid, at Blindfold Bay.
Sounds like a good place. Where is it?
Nowhere. At long last, I've succeeded in surprising the Patcher. My day is made.
Touché.
Blindfold Bay is one of the few remaining resorts in the world which are, at one, public and private. It's the sort of thing you used to be able to find, if you could afford it. Nowadays, you can't find it, even if you can afford it, unless you have friends. And true friendship is going out of fashion. You're flown there in an overnight aircraft and flown out again the same way. There are no means of identifying where you are.
And the purpose of this, subterfuge?
To retain absolute exclusivity. A rarity today, no? All staff is hired the same way. No one knows where he or she is. All possible landmarks have been eliminated. Certain anonymous individuals even remain the whole year through. If they can pay for it, of course.
And you're offering me a week's vacation in this where the rainbow ends?
Well...
Ah, the crunch.
Part vacation, part work. Inducement number 2. Have a look at these photos and pick yourself a wife.
Thanks. I can find my own wives.
This job necessitates a wife of our choosing, I'm afraid. Each girl you see there is very capable and licensed to kill.
And my need for a wife, all of a sudden? How does it contribute?
Well, no one seeing a healthy young male arriving at a completely exclusive resort is going to believe for a moment that he's there for his health. But a married couple, who asks questions?
Of course.
So, which do you choose?
I'll take the brunette with the twisted smile.
Right. I'm told she's quite a tiger.
Yeah, I hope she's a man-eater.
Her name is Penelope.
Never.
And your name is Jonathan. Penelope and Jonathan Riding.
Together.
As Mr. and Mrs. Riding, a wealthy couple. You'll be residing at Blindfold Bay for the moment. On a week's notice, of course.
Which cannot be given because no one knows where the place is.
It can be given. Otherwise, you couldn't get there.
And my task. Oh, I nearly forgot. The fee.
2/3 of what you have in that envelope, in addition to what you have already received from that envelope, of course.
Must be a hard task.
Not easy. A man has to be persuaded by one means or another to leave Blindfold Bay. He's been comfortably installed there for nearly 2 years. He's booked under the name of Manners, Henry Manners. To his friends, however, or ex-friends, he's known as Lips.
Lips?
On account of a freak of nature, he was born with a pair of lips, a partly formed mouth on his left shoulder.
Well, then, unlike most people, I won't be able to recognize him by where he puts his foot.
Your penchant for puns has always amazed, but rarely amused me, Patcher.
Well, that's because you can't enjoy the stupefaction that registers on the listener's face when I pop out with them.
Maybe I'll see you at Blindfold Bay then, Patcher.
Oh?
Maybe.
I understand we're married.
It appears so, but I haven't ever seen the certificate.
Do you think we ought to have one?
Oh, who's going to ask us for it?
Oh, you never know.
Well, suppose we act bored, complacent, and, indifferent. Won't that do?
Is that how life would be married to you?
Oh, Patcher. I have no illusions about you whatsoever. And if I wanted to get married, I said if, you'd be the last person I'd consider.
Careful. This airline might be bugged.
Well, then, it's your reputation that go for a loop, not mine.
Oh, I can see we're in for a fine fencing match.
I also play chess, squash, the horses, and can beat any man in a sprint if he's attractive enough. No, I'm not a women's liver, and yes, I can cook and do so.
Now, I wonder what you'd say if I actually started asking you questions about yourself. I understand that in addition to your other qualifications, you kill?
Correct.
What do you know about Lips?
What do you know about Lips?
Are you always this uncompromising?
Only when somebody's trying to corner me.
Tiger it is.
Pardon me?
What? Oh, nothing. Just a zoological discussion I was having with a friend before leaving Geneva.
You mean Fenning?
All right. I revise my question. What don't you know about Lips?
I'm listening. What don't I know about Lips?
You win.
Ah, that's better.
Lips, otherwise born as Henry Manners, some 40 years ago, of a wealthy and aristocratic family.
Rare combination.
Yeah, rare indeed. He started out life by blackmailing his father, whom he'd spotted sleeping with one of the maids, and
nice.
never looked back. He eventually discovered the most lucrative possibility of all. He arranged for the kidnapping of prominent citizens, took them east, and then sold them back to the west.
Brilliant.
On a commission basis, I must add. But it was a sizable one. And the governments concerned did very well, of course. And the newspapers, which got wind of it, got gagged. Now, this last activity of Lips was naughty. All the rest was somewhat illegal, which didn't matter. But putting cash into the pockets of the trade unions just was not on. And that's what Lips was doing every time he sold a body.
A live one, presumably?
Oh, yes. And they had to be in first-class condition or no sale.
Well, I know where I come into all of this, of course. And I know that you're supposed to persuade him to leave Blindfold Bay. But why?
Fenning wants Henry Manners out of the way because Henry's still operating.
I thought he'd sort of retired.
Yeah, so did we. But Blindfold Bay is a mighty expensive way to retire.
Then, by the way, one thing that really mystifies me. How did you find out about Blindfold Bay?
I only heard about it from Fenning, just before taking on the job.
I suppose Fenning knows all, so that explains it. Because, you know, I heard that it was practically impossible to even suspect its existence, let alone find out how to get to it.
Yeah, you can bet your bottom dollar that we'll find only two kinds of people there. Those who can afford to be there, and those who can't afford not to be there. And Henry's one of the latter.
There's a third category, of course.
Oh, what's that?
Lady bodyguards.
Ah, of course. I almost forgot.
Excuse me, would you mind very much if I sat here? There's an elderly gentleman who's fallen asleep, and he's more or less taken over my seat as well as his own.
Oh, not at all. Help yourself. Our name is Riding. I'm Jonathan, and this is Penelope, my wife.
How do you do?
My name's Adam Grant.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be touching down in about 15 minutes. Hope you've been comfortable on this trip and that you'll let us know if you have any suggestions for improvements and so on. In observing regulations governing these flights, no details have been given en route regarding altitude, routing, temperature, so forth. We are able to say, however, that the last pre-dawn weather report is excellent, so welcome to Blindfold Bay, thank you.
Fascinating, don't you think, Mr. Grant? The way they've thought of everything. Muffled engines so that the speed can't be calculated. Night flights so that visibility is out of the question. We could have traveled anything between 100 miles and 10,000 miles. The gyroscopic light body fixtures so that we can't even tell if the pilot's going in a circle.
I think it's wonderful, darling. I'm thrilled by the whole thing.
Well, I must say it's a marvelous experience for me.
Oh, Shangri-La, here we come.
Yes. I wonder how Inga found out about this place.
Have you done a check on everyone?
Yeah, it's all done, yeah.
Yes, but the list you've given me, is it complete?
Well,
All
yes,
right.
more or less.
Now, there are still two people I haven't had anything on. Ralph Partridge and Adam Grant.
Partridge is all right. We've checked on him.
Fine. That takes care of Partridge. Now, what about Grant?
Well, I'm afraid we haven't got much on him.
No, that won't do at all, John. You'll have to think again.
We should get hold of it.
What do you mean you can't find out anything? That's not possible. Oh, for heaven's sakes, John, there's no man alive on whom there's nothing to be found, so I'm going to have to go down there myself after all, confound it.
I expect so.
All right, John, let it go. Goodbye. Damn.
Good morning, Mr. Grant.
I'd like to congratulate you.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, this place has everything.
We're glad you're satisfied, Mr. Grant.
Have you been here long?
Oh, just over 3 years.
Tell me, do you have any ideas where it is?
Well, if I did, I wouldn't tell anyone.
Oh, why is that?
Well, you'd have everyone here then.
And that would spoil things. Huh?
Well, just imagine the bus loads.
Yes, of course. This decor is magnificent. Who did it?
A Mexican artist. I'm afraid I don't know his name.
Magnificent. I bet many of the visitors here pass a good deal of the time trying to work out where they are, just the same.
So do the staff.
And what about you?
Me? Well, I used to. But after a while, I thought it might be better not to know. But there was a man here once who took soil and rock samples, I think.
And what happened?
I don't know. We never saw him again.
So, are you the manager then?
Yes, I am. A newly appointed one.
Ah.
I was one of the assistant managers before that.
Oh, and this is where you want to stay?
Well, who wouldn't?
Quite. I think you have a point there. I don't know how it is for you, but for me it's a kind of never-never land. You don't have to have a past, or a future for that matter. But it beats me how you manage to have available all the luxuries and amenities. I mean, it must be hard to get what you need when you don't want anyone to know where it's going.
That can best be answered by the expression, if the price is right, no questions asked.
And that's good enough for me.
Well, if there's anything you require, please let me know.
I will. Thanks. hotel rooms. One way or the other, they're all alike. And every one of them reminds me of the one where I was born. Born in a hotel room and already over 30 years old. What a joke. A sort of cosmic joke in a way. You get up in the morning, you look in the shaving mirror, you've never seen the face in your life before. You think you've gone mad. You go through the pockets of clothing, which has to be yours, of course, and you only find one key. Nothing else. One key to a safety deposit box. No identification, no telltale clues as to who you are, where you're from, where you're going, how you got into the hotel, nothing. And then you track down the safety deposit box, and inside it you find tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. No message, no communication, no solution to the mystery. You're a man alone in a city you've never been to before with a fat pile of dollars and no inkling of who or even what you are. Fun? Not when you have to live it. Not when you know you're floating alone, adrift. A man with most of himself missing. And a world all too ready to help him find himself. Of course, for a price. A perfect sucker for the chances pimps con men. Well, at least there's Inga, the one bright speck in all this. Without her, I suppose I'd have already handed myself into the police. Or an asylum. And now Inga says Blindfold Bay will help me get some sort of a perspective on things. The perspective of a man without a memory, taking a holiday in a place that's right out of this world.
How are you?
I'm having a wonderful time, thank you, Mr. Fenning.
Good. I didn't expect to be here this soon, if at all. But I got an unexpected call from a halfwit and had to alter my plan.
Well, the half-wit's loss will be our profit, I hope.
Was the halfwit's name Reddington?
Perceptible, you my dear, it was.
So, are you here to check on someone?
I am indeed.
Anyone we know?
I do hope so.
Male or
Male.
Name?
Grant.
Adam?
Excellent news. Where is he?
half turn to the right? He's between the redhead and the hippopotamus.
Careful. He might be her father.
Oh, Adam Grant?
Children, please. Someone's just coming this way. Mr. Manners,
Why, Mr. Fenning. Fancy seeing you here. Haven't seen you since,
Yes, of course. Things have changed, even if actions haven't, as
they
they say.
yes.
May I introduce you? Mr. and Mrs. Riding, Mr. Manners.
How do you do?
Welcome to paradise.
Oh, the pleasure's ours.
Stunning weather.
Divine.
Are you staying long?
Long enough, I hope.
But longer if necessary.
If the weather lasts out.
Well, try the casino.
Oh, why the casino?
It's a great maker-up of minds.
I see the idle life hasn't blunted your wit, Mr. Manners.
Well, I have a rich fantasy life.
Have you been here long?
Oh, not nearly long enough, I feel.
I feel as though I could stay forever.
Some people have to.
Have to? You mean they object?
To what they've left behind them, yes.
Oh, there's Mr. Grant. Hello.
Hello, Mrs. Riding. Mr. Riding.
Mr. Manners, Mr. Grant, Mr. Fenning.
How do you do?
Mr. Grant, haven't we met before?
Is it my face you recall or my name?
Your face, actually. Were you at Nairobi?
Not that I know of.
Oh. Well, what about Hong Kong?
Marvelous place.
No, I mean...
So near to everything.
And so far from reality.
Exactly.
Mr.
Well,
Grant.
actually, I've been around quite a lot, and to be quite frank, I can't remember sometimes whether or not I've been to certain places.
My goodness, you must have been around a lot.
Very interesting. So you're a traveler, then?
In a way, yes.
Oh, now, don't be modest, Mr. Grant. You appear to have covered quite a lot of territory.
Oh, yes, do tell us more.
Well, then, if you've been everywhere, you must have been to Mexico.
Mexico. Elohim Jimenez.
Where was that?
How very perceptive of you, Mr. Grant. It is indeed.
It is what?
Elohim Jimenez.
What is Elohim Jimenez?
The artist, the man responsible for this decor.
Oaxaca.
Come again.
Well, you are well versed, Mr. Grant.
I knew Elohim in Oaxaca.
How very nice for you.
Crazy names. Ixtacíhuatl. Huitzilopochtli.
Are you feeling all right?
Yes. Yeah, it's all right. I thought I'd forgotten. That's all.
Well, I must say, I never thought I'd come across anyone who'd be able to identify Jimenez's work at first sight. Are you sure this is the first time you've been here, Mr. Grant?
No.
Pardon me?
I mean, yes, of course. I wonder if you'd all excuse me. I have a slight migraine.
No, poor man.
Do you mind?
Not at all, not at all.
No.
Thank you. I'll see you all later.
Well, I see a pal of mine over there, if you'll excuse me.
No, with a pleasure, Mr. Manners. My. Now I know why there's nothing on Grant.
Why?
Because Adam Grant's got nothing on Adam Grant.
Enlightenment would help.
We've just been talking to an amnesia case.
Well, I'm damned.
A man with no memory who can afford to stay at Blindfold Bay.
And a man who might have been associated with Henry Lips Manners at one time?
I want us to go where we can talk.
Such as?
Follow your leader. This should do very
Now,
nicely.
what's the plan?
Surely you're leaving, aren't you?
Oh, why would I do that?
Well, you came, you saw, you identified.
True, Penelope, true.
Yeah, but something tells me...
That our headmaster is...
Our what?
Oh, Patcher, didn't you know?
A headmaster.
And what amuses you?
Well, I might have known. From Latin to
I
espionage.
did not teach Latin.
No, but I'll bet you spoke it.
Only when particularly angry.
Must have sounded marvelous.
Not to the recipient of my wrath.
Come to think of it, I never did check up on you, Fenning.
My past is an open book. But some of the pages are stuck together.
I'll bet.
Let's get back to now.
All right, what's it to be?
Well, as you can see, Henry Manners is going to be a hard one to hook. We can't force him out of here. He has to be frightened out. And he has to be more frightened of staying here than of what's waiting for him on the other side before he'll even think of budging.
Agreed.
Now, what could frighten Henry?
I propose Penelope.
Now, just because you tremble when you look at me
Can't you recognize
doesn't
desire
really
when you see...
mean that...
The last thing Henry's frightened of is women.
How very ungrammatical,
I
headmaster.
don't like talking down to people. Back to frightening Henry.
I've got it. A certain friend.
An old acquaintance?
But how?
A tailor-made old acquaintance.
Adam Grant.
Oh, he'd never do it.
Cash?
No. In exchange.
For example?
We offer him Elohim Jimenez on a platter and a portion of his past in exchange for the deed.
What makes you think he can't find Elohim Jimenez by himself?
He'll be made to understand that no deal and Jimenez won't be findable.
Well, I do declare, Mr. Fenning. You make me feel as innocent as a schoolboy.
Patcher, there is no such thing as an innocent schoolboy. Willie, Fenning here. I want everything that you have on Elohim Jimenez. That's Jimenez. Try Guadalajara or Mexico City and his association with Adam Grant. No, I don't know when. It's got to be in the past 15 years. Yes. Put it in a night letter. Well, you leave the post office to worry about that. Right. Oh, and Willie, Jimenez is not to know, right? Not even a whiff. Good. Usual fee? Fine. Bye.
Game of chess, Patra?
The name's Riding, remember?
Oh, sorry. Well?
Why not? There's nothing personal in chess, is there?
Not a thing. Yeah. White to me, then.
How did you know I played?
Anyone who associates with Fenning must play chess.
So, you're, well entrenched here.
Oh, yes. Blindfold Bay suits my temperament.
And your pocket, it seems.
Be careful of my queen's knight. Little devil he is.
My saintly bishop will keep an eye on him.
I wonder why the French call them clowns.
I wonder why the English call them bishops.
Yes, as you say, I'm well entrenched here.
But, not unmovable?
Well, if there were a tremendous offer.
Lorraine.
Check.
What kind of offer?
Oh, well, let's just put it this way. If your pawn stopped threatening my knight, thereby guaranteeing its safe conduct, I might be able to furnish you with a few names.
Names? Names I can get from a telephone book.
Not these names.
What makes you think I want names?
What makes you think I am the big fish?
Not the big one. The key one.
No, that's all over now.
No, Henry.
Are you inferring...
I'm not inferring, Henry. I know.
I've retired.
So is the Mafia.
Fenning's telling stories.
Fiction's not his style.
Fantasy is.
I doubt it.
You believe him, then?
I work for him.
I thought the Patcher worked alone.
I do. I don't pay myself, though.
Come in with me, Patcher. Get yourself a future.
My past doesn't qualify me for it.
Can't you stop pretending you have principles?
They're my only vices.
You're no saint.
Oh, heaven forbid.
Well, your move, I believe.
Checkmate, I believe. Now, Lips. Take it easy.
Don't call me Lips.
Well, anyway, you want to be careful when you challenge me, Lips.
Oh, why's that, mouth?
I cheat.
Hello. I overheard you asking for Mr. Adam Grant.
Uh-huh.
Actually, he complained of a migraine last night.
Oh.
My husband and I were chatting with him, so I dare say he won't be down very early.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, there's no hurry anyway.
We met him on the plane. Apparently an old fellow had decided to fall asleep using him for a pillow, so he ceded his place and came and sat next to us. I'm Penelope Riding, by the way.
Inga Crawford.
So this is your first time to blindfold Miss Crawford?
Yes, it is. I'd heard about it, of course, but have never managed to get here before now.
Oh, well, you must have some excellent contacts.
Contacts?
Why, yes. I understand it's very difficult to even hear about it, let alone find out where it is, or rather how to get to it.
Oh, I see what you mean. So I guess that means you also have some excellent contacts.
Good morning, Mrs. Riley.
Good morning, Mr. Fenning. Where have you left that husband of mine?
At the 18th hole, wondering how it could have happened.
I gather he was trounced.
Well, yes. You see, he couldn't very well tuck my number 3 iron away in his pocket, could he?
This is Inga Crawford, Mr. Fenning. A friend of Mr. Adam Grant's.
Oh, really? Well.
Well, you make it sound as though he shouldn't be expected to have any friends.
I assure you, Miss Crawford, it was more in the nature of a compliment than...
Taken, sir. I'll have another look around, I think. Excuse me, won't you?
Of course. Later.
See you later.
Last.
So you have a rival.
Dear child, I'm not after the woman, I'm after Grant.
Well, it takes all sorts.
Penelope.
Oh, I know. So you figure the new gal's going to spoil your chances of duping our forgetful friend?
Precisely.
Awkward.
The last thing I expected was that he was going to be joined by someone else. This means that either she knows he's lost his memory or that there's some game or other going on. Let's sit over here, shall we?
I don't think she's more than she appears to be.
Now, where's that feminine intuition we regard so highly at the office, eh?
So you want me to believe she's a commie?
It's an assumption, but it's all I've got.
All you've got. The great Mr. Fenning with worldwide contacts at his fingertips.
Here's a secret I can spare you, Penelope. Haven't you wondered why I don't do more operating from Blindfold Bay?
All right, why?
Because it's nowhere. That cuts my contacts, or rather the mechanics of contact making, down to a minimum, doesn't it?
But you know where it is, don't you?
Perhaps. But I'm a good member of the Magician's Circle. No tricks revealed.
Oh, I might have guessed.
Meanwhile, back to Inga Crawford.
So we're not going to be afraid of a little Russian spy, are we?
There's no such thing as an innocent schoolboy, remember? And there's no such thing as a little Russian spy. Every one of these is 10 times the size of every one of ours. When you're out to destroy, you're 10 times as strong as those who are out just to defend.
So, what do you reckon she's after?
Something Mr. Adam Grant possesses and possibly doesn't know he possesses.
You mean she's acting as a shadow?
A shadow? Could be. Well, could be.
Any connection with lips?
That remains to be revealed.
Miss Crawford.
Oh, hello, Mr. Fenning.
Well, what do you think of our domain?
Well, it's the kind of kingdom I wouldn't mind owning a piece of.
Lovely, isn't it? Miss Crawford, I'd like to avoid wasting time beating about the bush. I realized as soon as he spoke to me last night that Adam Grant is an amnesia case.
I see.
Now, this may appear strange to you, but there's something I want Mr. Grant to do for me, and I'm prepared to pay for it.
Mr. Grant is a man of considerable financial means.
The payment would be in currency of a higher rating than money.
Oh?
His past.
Do I take it that you know about his past, then?
Some of it, yes.
I'm Mr. Grant's nurse.
You're not.
What makes you say that?
No nurse would have so politely refrained from going to her patient, especially after hearing that he had a migraine.
I find your tone slightly...
I said I didn't want to beat about the bush, Miss Crawford.
Well, you certainly can't be accused of that, Mr. Fenning.
Will it relieve you somewhat if I tell you that I'm not really interested in what you are to Mr. Grant?
Well,
And that I know that you're a great deal cleverer than, let us say, Adam Grant imagines you are?
Well, I am a journalist, Mr. Fenning, and whatever else they're renowned for, it's not stupidity.
And I, madam, am a plumber's mate.
And I fear that you are underemployed, Mr. Fenning.
Now, that's better. I assume that we may now talk business.
I'm listening.
I want Adam Grant to convince a friend of mine to leave here. And to do so, he must pose as, let us say, a threat to my friend's peace of mind.
And your precise offer in return.
A chunk of his past.
How do I know that
You don't. But perhaps this will help a little. Let us describe the piece of Adam Grant's past that I'm offering you as currency.
Go on.
The currency, on receipt of deeds done, will be payable to you You can then decide, as Mr. Grant's nurse, what proportion of the payment would be good for him.
Are you suggesting that I might have a reason for withholding information from Mr. Grant?
I'm not inquiring into your motives, Miss Crawford. There's no need to investigate mine.
Always assuming I have motives in this regard.
Always assuming, of course.
But why choose Adam Grant for this kind of work? Is the world so short of professionals?
My friend knows all the professionals and where their birthmarks are. From here to the moon and back.
And Adam Grant, he doesn't know from Adam.
Correct.
Who's your friend?
Henry Manners. Otherwise known as Lips.
And what exactly is my role to be in this affair?
You are to persuade Mr. Grant.
Why me?
Because he'll take it from you. He'll accept the idea more readily from you than from a stranger. He trusts you.
Does he?
Without a doubt. Like a blind man trusts his guide dog.
Well, that's an improvement on nurse.
This is what I want done. Now, this is how it's going to be.
And you're asking me, a beginner, to take on someone of that caliber?
How do you know you are a beginner, Mr. Grant?
True.
In any event, you don't have to do anything except put on an act.
And convince a man who knows the thinking and habits of every professional this side of the moon.
You won't be alone. Here, tuck this into your ear.
What is it?
Through it, you'll hear my voice guiding you as you go.
You mean you'll be putting the words into my mouth?
Well, into your ear, rather. Not the exact words, necessarily, but an abbreviated form. Or I might simply say something like, bring up the subject of Dolly and the postman.
Oh, yeah, and I say, Mr. Manners, have you heard the joke about Dolly and the postman?
Come on. You know what I mean.
Yes, all right. And how do I begin this two-way radio farce? And what about Miss Crawford?
What about her?
Well, doesn't she fit into this somewhere?
Why should she?
Well, she advised me to do it.
Fenning rather wisely decided to approach Miss Inga Crawford first.
Mm-hmm.
He felt it would be less impersonal that way, and one could almost say less offensive.
Oh, she seemed to have found it offensive enough.
She was protecting your interests, I would say. A maternal move. Well, anyway, for her own reasons, she's got your interests at heart.
For her own reasons?
Never try to fathom a woman's reasons, as they say. It may be simple feline curiosity. She's just dying to hear what Fenning knows about your past. Or something deeper.
How do I begin?
I'll join you over here, then. Now, what can I do for you?
My client wishes me to inform you that unless you pack up and leave Blindfold Bay within 48 hours, alive, you'll be leaving anyway. Dead.
Oh, not bad. Not bad at all. Oh, my. That's the best I've heard in a long time. Well, now, let's see. Let me guess. You're short of cash, eh? Go on. Now the chips are down, you might as well be frank. Oh, come on now. I won't eat you, you know.
Mr. Manners, the laughing's over. 48 hours will give you time enough. You have no choice.
All right, all right. Cut out the act, fella. Be a man and come out with it. How much do you need?
If I needed money, I'd go to Scotty, Mr. Manners, not to you.
How's it? So clever, lad. You've hauled in a little information about me. Fine. Very praiseworthy. Now can we finish the games? For the last time, I'm asking, how much do you want? And I might as well tell you the ante's going down.
In a few seconds, you'll be reaching into the side of the chair you're sitting in for a Rodney 43 repeater.
Aha! So, Thatcher put you up to this, eh?
No one put me up to this. I'm acting on behalf of a client about whom you know nothing whatsoever.
There's no one about whom I know nothing.
We learn something new every day.
If I didn't know otherwise, I'd swear it was Patcher in front of me instead of you.
Patches of no consequence to me.
No, really? How very interesting.
Don't bother to go for your little gun, Mr. Manners. I'm armed, and it's pointing straight at you.
You are not armed, my friend.
Your screen must be faulty, then.
All right, smart boy. How long are we going to keep up this charade? What are you playing at? What do you want?
Want? I'm demanding, not wanting.
Do you have any idea what power means, Mr. Grant, if that is your name?
If indeed.
I'm glad to have amused you. Now, let me tell you a couple of quick jokes. Your verbal antics together with your scrupulously acquired information don't bother me a bit. I meet more screwballs in a week than you can count. If you think you're going to get more money out of me by piling up on the, shall we call it, inferred threats, you're wrong. Now, I'm warning you.
Stay in your chair.
You're bluffing.
It's my turn to warn you. You'd better take my word for it.
What do you really need?
You to leave blindfold.
I said really.
I've told you I want
What?
you...
Do you know who the hell you're talking to?
Henry Lips Manners. Gentleman punk.
I wouldn't laugh if I were you, Mr. Bloody Grant, or whoever you are, not if I were in your position as of the moment you leave my apartment.
I'd cry if I were in your position, Mr. Manners.
All right. What's your price?
Ah, the price part. I wondered when you'd come to that.
Well, name it. What do you get? I'll see you get more.
Do I have your word on that?
You do. I'll plaster you all over the wall.
Stop where you are. That's the last warning I'll give you, Manners. The next you won't hear.
Don't you realize that whatever I apparently agree to won't be valid from the moment you leave this room? Your every waking moment will seem to be your last.
Why, Mr. Manners? You're not going to have me killed, are you?
No, Mr. Grant, not killed. Maimed. I wonder how you'll enjoy being a cripple for the rest of your so-called life.
Well, Mr. Manners, if you knew just how many earphones were relaying what you were saying to the ears of various and sundry listeners, you would realize just how well protected I am from these sorts of empty threats. For empty they are. You see this little apparatus I'm taking out of my ear? Please note that my other hand is still in my pocket. Yes, it's been doing a lot of work for me, this little charmer. But just for the moment, no doubt to the fury of its owners, I'm going to roll it up in this handkerchief and cut the rest of the world off.
Why are you doing that?
Oh, don't be so afraid, Henry. It's just that I've a private proposition to put to you.
Oh, there is a price then.
There is.
Interesting.
A price I want paid in advance.
In advance?
In advance.
How do I know
You don't.
You're expecting...
You have no choice.
If I believe you...
Meaning?
If I believe you have a backer.
Backer?
Sponsor. Interested party. Client, if you prefer.
Well, I should believe it if I were you.
All right. Go ahead.
Elohim Jimenez.
What about him?
Do you know him?
Maybe.
Do you know him?
I know people who know him. Why?
I'm asking the questions. Can you contact him by phone?
It is not easy to get anyone by phone from
Can
blindfold...
you get him by phone?
I think so.
Right. I'll sit right here while you do it. I don't have to tell you not to play any games. I want the man contacted, and when you've got him, you pass me the receiver, holding it between your thumb and index finger, right?
All right.
God. The damn thing went off. Heart. Oh. It stopped. It can't have. He's dead.
I'll lock the door. Right. Turn him over.
My God.
Stiff drinks all around, I think.
Sorry to confront you with a sight like this, Miss Crawford, but you may be able to help us.
Yes, of course.
It's both good and bad for us that a Keating 36S causes such havoc to the victim. Bad because the blotches all over his skin are not pretty to see. Good because he could have died from a mysterious disease picked up, say, in Africa.
Right. Here, drink this up, Miss Crawford. It'll do you good.
Nothing for me, thanks.
All right.
You can give me Miss Crawford's. I'll need at least half a dozen of these.
Now then, Mr. Grant, what happened?
He was going to telephone, he said. He got up and turned on me, and we grappled, and he held out my right wrist so that I couldn't get my hand out of my pocket. And I tried to get it out, and finally, I managed. And as I did so, my finger must have caught in the trigger. It went off.
Who was he telephoning? Who, Mr. Grant? Who was he going to telephone?
Adam?
Elohim Jimenez.
Yes.
What? You double-crossing son of a...
Look, who's talking of double-crossing? What the hell did you give me a lethal weapon for? You told me that it was a case of emergencies.
And why did you take your hearing aid out, may I ask? What kind of game was that?
Didn't you tell him to show the gun and not to use it, Patcher?
I didn't think for 1 minute he'd use it.
Well, the great Patcher didn't think.
You keep out of this.
I'll bet you think you've got yourself a real pawn in your little farce, eh?
Listen, sonny boy, this is your mess, and you've got to count on us to clear it up.
I don't see why it's Adam's mess. You came up with the proposition.
But Mr. Grant had everything to gain.
Patcher, you botched it.
I told you to listen and follow all my directives.
I did just that. And then I wanted just to try something.
Well, that was a pretty foolhardy thing to do.
Oh, it's fine for you, isn't it? You've got rid of your obstacle. You've achieved your ends. And what have I got?
Oh, don't worry, Mr. Grant. The Bureau will think of something.
Oh, sure. The Bureau will whisk a corpse out of Blindfold Bay and nobody will ever see it again.
We can't do that. It's got to be a bona fide death, and that's that.
And I can guess what price I'll have to pay.
What price, Adam?
Well, we're lucky in one way, and that is that there's no visible point of entry.
And the dot?
Disappeared. Together with the weapon, we can say.
Another trick to the Bureau.
Adam, why didn't you follow their instructions?
I did. To a point.
But what did you hope to gain?
An independent way to get the information I wanted.
But they said...
And how did I know I'd succeed? Or for that matter, how did I know they'd give me what I wanted if I'd carried this charade through to the end? Honor among thieves?
Oh, come now, Mr. Grant. We're not thieves. Murderers, kidnappers, gun runners, but not thieves.
Well said, Patcher.
I think Mr. Manners is going to leave in a coffin after all.
Manners in a coffin. Seems appropriate these days, doesn't it?
Well, at least we can thank our stars that Henry only had electronic bodyguards. If he'd live ones, we might not be sitting here having this delightful post-mortem.
Firstly, Manners couldn't afford to keep someone here as well as himself. And secondly, don't underrate his electronic aids. His suite is littered with them.
Who'd believe the pseudo-suave Mr. Manners would finally have to resort to physical violence?
Finally.
Well, I can promise you one thing. If you don't find a way of getting me out of this, I'll pull every one of you under.
Mr. Grant, I hesitate to use the weight of our machinery as a cudgel. But you have nothing to count on but our, shall we call it integrity in this matter? It would be far easier to dump the whole thing onto you and ease ourselves out. You can be quite sure that you would have no case at all.
Which means, I presume, that Mr. Grant has no further currency with which to buy the information he requires.
Why, Miss Crawford, I must say you put the point very well indeed.
Miss Crawford, I wonder, do you realize what it's going to cost us altogether to remove all traces of foul play and get our dead friend out of here?
I'm deeply touched, Mr. Fenning, And I do realize how you will suffer immeasurably while you extricate an innocent party from the tangle you got him into.
Ah, bravo!
Haven't you had enough of those?
Listen, Ducky, you're neither my guardian nor my keeper.
Nevertheless, we have to sort this thing out, and rapidly. We cannot afford the luxury of philosophizing on the rights and wrongs of what has been done.
In other words, Adam, you won't get your information.
I'm sure Mr. Grant would prefer his life and liberty, with certain elements of his past missing, to indefinite incarceration and restored memory, wouldn't you?
I have the feeling that I should advertise myself as a professional pawn.
Don't worry, Adam Grant. If everyone else abandons you, I'll look after you.
Meanwhile, it can be said that indirectly, thanks to Mr. Grant, we have achieved our aims. Mr. Manners is going to leave Blindfold Bay, and simultaneously the traffic in kidnapped bodies will end.
Isn't that worth something, then?
Worth? What's worth? We had an arrangement with your Mr. Adam Grant. He reneged on it. We're quits. If your friend gets out of here with his hide intact, good for him.
Nothing given away, eh?
If you've got something to bargain with, you can get something for it. Otherwise, nothing. Why, Miss Crawford? Do you have anything to bargain with?
Yes.
Inga?
Let's have your proposition, Miss Crawford.
The name of a certain man.
What? Names? Again?
Of a certain man you're looking for, who moves between Bucharest and Istanbul.
Tell me, why can't you two go to Mexico and look around for this Jimenez person, in any case, and forget about all these bargains?
Because this way's faster.
I want that name. As Miss Crawford says, and I say it for both of us, it's faster this way. All right. We'll exchange our information on the plane out of Blindfold Bay.
All right.
Good. Let's get to work.
Oh, I really never thought we had a chance of making it.
Oh, don't underestimate our friends. They know exactly which strings to pull and when.
And so, we're on our way out of paradise with a corpse.
Not exactly.
What do you mean, not exactly?
Henry Manners isn't dead.
What?
Take
What?
it easy, Adam.
Take it easy. Do you think, what do you mean?
No, wait. Listen to me.
How can you tell me he isn't...
Wait. Venning came to see me just before we left. Now, just bear with me for a moment. Venning came to see me. He explained that there was nothing really to worry about because Manners was merely drugged, but with a drug which would defy the closest investigation of an expert. In other words, Henry Manners is dead as far as the world knows. But as far as... It's a criminal thing, you know, not a political one. Even though it does involve East and West, and even though certain governments are implicated in that they received cash as a result of their transaction. They wanted Manners alive, not dead, you know.
But then why convince me I killed him? Why all the hoaxing?
Venning knew I had this name handy.
What? The man in Bucharest?
Yes? So his object was to convince me you were in real trouble, so I would come up with the goods.
How did you get this name? I mean,
We journalists have our spies, you know.
And why, Inga, why did he choose to come to you before we left and tell you it had been a hoax?
You'd better know that he'd done some checking, and Elohim Jimenez had disappeared 4 years ago from Mexico City without a trace. There's no trail leading to him at all.
Go on.
He was very embarrassed. You see, he prides himself on being able to trace anyone whatsoever, and he fell down on this one. So, in a curiously gentlemanly way...
What do you mean, curiously?
Well, in that game, believe me, Adam, there's no such thing as a gentleman. Anyway, he offered to forget about the information I had for him, in view of his not having the information I wanted from him. Of course, you realize, Adam, that he suspects me of being, well, you know, one of the enemy.
Enemy?
Yes, the other side. Russian or whatever. Well, I don't know what's so funny about that. After the way I jumped to your protection.
Sorry, my dear Inga. It's true, you were marvelous. And I'm very happy that you were taken for one of them, after all.
Hello. We thought we'd pop over and see how you're enjoying the return flight.
Well, if it isn't Mr. and Mrs. Riding. Hello there.
Which grammatically should be, well, if they aren't Mr. and Mrs. Riding.
But who cares about grammar? How are you feeling about returning to the real world, Mr. Grant?
Oh, well, I must say, I think I prefer a fantasy world.
So do I. Imagine what a bore it's going to be from now on.
Funny, really. Most of the people I know have a longing to get back to their dull jobs and wives and things once they've been on a holiday for a week or two.
Yes. I must say the next few weeks of routine are going to be very dull.
Oh? What sort of routine will that be, Mr. Fenning?
Oh, you know, question and answer, answer and question. That sort of thing.
How dreadfully dull.
Hard on the lips, I should have said.
Well, a bit of lip smacking doesn't do any harm, does it?
Yeah.
Not to the smacker, no.
So, you had a good time at Blindfold Bay then, Miss Crawford?
Oh, exquisite. Not a thing to do but lie around and stare at that clear sky all day.
Well, better than staring at a wooden lid, eh?
And you know what? I seem to have lost every single bit of my curiosity about where Blindfold Bay actually is.
Yeah, well, as for me, the place seems, strangely enough, to have slipped completely out of my memory.
Listen out for episode 2.